Wow, I was absolutely thrilled. This was my very first time attending a circus, and as you can imagine, such chances are quite rare. The circus was scheduled to leave town in just a week, heading off to its next destination, and it was uncertain when it might return. The whole experience was exhilarating. The concluding act was a stage hypnosis performance. Though it was getting late, I was determined not to head home before witnessing it. This was my inaugural experience of observing live hypnosis. My only previous encounter had been a televised one on America's Got Talent. Jane, however, wasn't keen on staying till the show's finale since her mom insists on early nights, and we had school the following day. Unlike Jane's mom, my mom likely wouldn't even realize if I didn't make it back home. After Jane departed, I queued up to purchase a ticket for the show in the Tent of Magic. Entering the tent, I was utterly captivated by the stunning array of lights, the enchanting glow, and the unique decorations. On the stage stood a petite man. Adorned with a white turban, he spoke in an unusual manner. I couldn't recall ever witnessing anything as mesmerizing as that show. The turbaned man stood before us all, selecting 3 individuals from the audience. Despite my intense eagerness to be picked, I felt relieved that he didn't choose me. Had he done so, I would have missed out on all the hilarity. What he did with his chosen participants had me in fits of laughter. Initially, he directed them to focus on a tiny watch he oscillated before them. Following this, he commanded, "Upon my finger snap, you shall fall asleep. And at the sound of Alakazam, you will be yourself once again." Observing these 3 individuals suddenly succumb to slumber with just a simple snap of the turban-clad man's fingers was both captivating and unnerving. He instructed the first participant to embody a chicken, and the man flawlessly executed the role, clucking and pecking at imaginary grains on the ground throughout the performance. The second participant transformed into a cat, pursuing the chicken and amusingly engaging with a ball of yarn. The third, meanwhile, was convinced he was none other than the former President of the United States, Barack Obama, poised to deliver a speech. True to form, he stood before us and delivered an incredibly stirring oration. It was so convincingly done, I briefly wondered if Barack Obama himself was actually present. Despite the spectacle's awe-inspiring nature, it didn't captivate everyone in the audience. Some voiced skepticism, suggesting the entire act was pre-arranged with the volunteers beforehand. Others seemed indifferent to the authenticity of the performance, more concerned with capturing the moment on their cameras. As for myself, I was wholly enchanted, choosing to embrace the magic of the moment. In the show's finale, the turbaned man snapped his fingers once more, exclaiming, "Alakazam!" Instantaneously, all returned to their regular states, blissfully unaware of their antics prior to being roused from their hypnotic state. The performance had come to an end, and the audience began to exit the tent en masse. Yet for me, the adventure was far from over. It was actually just beginning. I patiently waited until the last of the crowd had dispersed. Then I discreetly followed the man adorned in the turban until he arrived at his trailer. As he unlocked the door, a circus employee called him over, resulting in him leaving the door ajar. Seizing the opportunity, I thought to myself, this is my moment. I stealthily entered his trailer, taking cover behind a stack of boxes. He returned sometime later, oblivious to my presence. However, as he started to remove his turban, I accidentally knocked over one of the boxes. A wave of panic washed over me as he shifted his gaze in my direction, instantly aware of my intrusion. My body shook uncontrollably, and I berated myself for my thoughtlessness. I had intruded into his private space without a plan, neglecting to consider the possibility of getting caught. I only wanted to ask him a few questions. Why hadn't I simply knocked on his door? "Who's there?" he bellowed, but I was paralyzed with fear. "I know someone's in here, you'd best show yourself," he insisted. With trepidation, I emerged from my hiding spot, revealing myself slowly. What had I gotten myself into? This man was a hypnotist. He had the power to transform me into a chicken or, even worse, Donald Trump, with just a single glance. Murmuring an apology, I covered my face with my hands, pleading, "Please don't hypnotize me. I didn't mean to intrude. I'm just a big fan of your work." Contrary to my expectations, he burst into laughter, informing me that I wasn't the first to sneak into his trailer and assuredly wouldn't be the last. He also revealed that he had a clear understanding of my motives for sneaking into his trailer. He believed I was there to uncover the secrets of hypnosis. I was taken aback, Could he possibly have psychic abilities as well? Had he just read my thoughts? Curious, I inquired if learning to hypnotize others was a feasible goal. Rather than providing a direct answer, he simply opened the trailer door, gesturing for me to leave. It seemed like a silent message, and albeit frustrating, I took it as it was and headed home. That experience marked the beginning of my newfound obsession. I couldn't shake off the overwhelming desire to master mind control. You might be wondering what sparked this intense interest. Let's just say that aching for a bit of my mom's love seemed like a pretty legitimate reason. Since the tragic car accident last year that claimed the lives of my dad and older brother, my mom seemed to have lost her connection with me. She appeared indifferent, not caring whether I ate dinner or how I fared in school. She hardly even acknowledged my presence at home. It felt as though I had lost not just my father and brother in that accident, but my mother as well. All I yearned for was to have her back in my life, truly present. I genuinely believed that mastering hypnosis was the only avenue to achieve that, which explains why I was so adamant about watching the last show of the night. Everything does happen for a reason, doesn't it? I retreated to my room and plunged into the world of hypnosis, researching methods online throughout the night, determined to learn how to hypnotize someone. I amassed a substantial list of hypnotic techniques, diligently jotting them down in a dedicated notebook, though I harbored doubts about my ability to execute them correctly. The following morning, I headed to school, weary from a sleepless night, eagerly anticipating Jane's arrival. Upon her arrival, I eagerly seized her hand, guiding her to a secluded spot for a private conversation. She was utterly perplexed by my actions. Once we reached a quiet area in the schoolyard, I implored her to sit before me and fix her gaze upon my finger, which I gradually brought closer to her eyes. When I snap my fingers, you will jump like a little frog, I instructed. For a brief moment, I believed I might have successfully hypnotized her. However, Jane simply stared at me as if I had lost my mind, declaring, "Okay, that was odd. I'm going to head back to class now. You're welcome to stay here with your whatever this is, but don't come prying to me if you end up in trouble." I spent the remainder of the day trailing after Jane, attempting every technique I had discovered the previous night. Alas, none of them yielded any results. I couldn't fathom what I was doing wrong or why I couldn't seem to hypnotize Jane. I meticulously reviewed each step repeatedly, all to no avail. Left with no other options, I decided to return to the circus in a last-ditch effort to persuade the turbaned man to reveal the secrets of mind control. That night, I waited patiently until the final performance concluded, then stealthily followed the man back to his trailer. Suddenly, his voice pierced the night. "I know you're following me. It's futile. I still won't teach you anything." I was taken aback. First, he had read my thoughts, and now he seemed to possess the ability to detect me without even laying eyes on me. What an enigmatic character he was. Did he have some sort of extrasensory perception? Nonetheless, I persisted in my pursuit, regardless of his attempts to dissuade me. Turning to face me, he inquired about my unwavering determination to learn from him. I opened up, explaining that my sole desire was to reclaim my mother's love. He regarded me intently before pointing out that love isn't something we can simply demand from others, nor is it within our control. Despite this, he labeled me as just another charlatan seeking the secrets of hypnosis. Nevertheless, he offered to teach me a minor trick, cautioning me to never misuse it as he wouldn't always be around to intervene. Indeed, all that I had previously learned from YouTube and Google was accurate. The crucial element was that my subject had to willingly submit to hypnosis and believe in my ability to hypnotize them, a unique form of energy exchange between humans. Surprisingly, it actually worked when I tested it on him. Additionally, I was reminded that when hypnotizing someone, it's imperative to have a specific awakening word in mind, much like his use of Alakazam in his shows. It might sound relatively straightforward, but what initially seemed simple rapidly grew more complex, eventually spiraling my life into chaos. Upon returning home, my next challenge was figuring out how to convince my mother to believe in my hypnotic abilities and willingly undergo hypnosis. The following day, I eagerly shared the entire saga with Jane. Initially, she burst into laughter, under the impression that hypnosis was nothing more than a gimmick seen on entertainment shows. However, her skepticism waned as I introduced her to various YouTube videos on the subject, sparking her interest. Eager to demonstrate, I had her sit directly in front of me, locking eyes as I instructed. Upon my count to 3, followed by a finger snap, you will find yourself unable to count past 5. To return to your normal state, you will need to hear the phrase Joshikazam. With that, I snapped my fingers, began filming, and prompted her to count to 10. She proceeded, but faltered after 5, repeatedly restarting her count from 1. After a few moments, I uttered Joshikazam, and she snapped back to reality. She was astounded upon viewing the footage, unable to fathom what had just occurred. Buoyed by this success, we hatched a plan to persuade my mom to undergo hypnosis, hoping it would rekindle her love and concern for me. Yet, the wise words of the man in the turban echoed in my mind. Love is neither controllable nor demandable. In hindsight, attempting to hypnotize my mother was an egregious error, one I profoundly regret. However, the story doesn't end there. Curious about the aftermath? Stay tuned for the ensuing chapter of my tale.